This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the fastest and easiest place to build your photography website. Today I'm talking to you about how I got a show with Nikon. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to have a travel show. Television was kind of that opportunity when I was growing up, when I was a kid. Also behind me over here, this is a bit of a precursor to what's gonna happen next, but it's all related to what's going on here. That said, it's a little windy, so maybe we'll go back into the vehicle to continue this conversation. As a kid, growing up on the internet, I really had no idea that you could kind of just do this yourself. I always thought that you needed a producer, you needed somebody to scout you, to find you in a restaurant somewhere and be like, this guy, you're the one. It turns out that I wouldn't have had that personality. If anyone else was in this vehicle, I wouldn't be able to speak properly. I would be able to get a couple of sentences out, but I would not be naturally myself at all. And because of that, I really just would never have made it in television or anything that requires a proper crew to come around with me. Where I found that I enjoyed creating content when I was out there with myself or maybe one or two of my friends, that I was able to be myself and also steer the content in the direction that I wanted it to go. Now, after doing a lot of travel content over the past couple of years, I have learned a few things, and a few of those things are the things that I tell you over and over and over again on the channel here. If you are a wedding photographer, or you're looking to get into the photography industry, my number one thing is always for you to go out and to create your own portfolio first. That is exactly what we did in the case of the Nikon show. I actually went out by myself with a camera. I had a Nikon D5500 with the kit lens, and I went out and I filmed a couple test episodes. I was like, I'd like to do this travel show thing. I had a few opportunities where I was essentially alone for a day or two in different places in between commercial photography jobs. So I thought it would be fun to record what I eventually wanted to get paid to do. In the beginning, it was very, very bad, very not good content, and not many people watched it or really enjoyed it or got any value from it. But what I learned was the technical skills required, and also what things actually got responses and what things were actually helpful, and what things got people to actually email me. And I really appreciate that one specific story that you told in Israel, and as somebody that grew up in Canada, like, I connected to that in some weird way. So I found what content worked for other people as well as myself. So I always want to be doing something that is true to myself. And I also want to be creating something that other people will either enjoy and find entertainment value from, or actually learn something from. And those anxieties or those thoughts really do steer the direction of my content. So as a kid growing up in the snowboard and ski scene, as you can see the rails out over here, more to come on that. I'm excited about this project. I snowboarded, and I guess to also speak to this, I was in the music scene kind of at the same time as this. I was a musician, I was in some bands, I was not very good by any means, but I was doing both of these things. And as it turns out, what I actually enjoyed doing the most was creating value for the people that were part of that scene. So if I was out here at the ski hill, I wanted to be documenting, and I wanted to be creating something that was valuable for other people. In the music space, same deal. In terms of building your own portfolio, that is still how I do things today. That I have one success, I figure out how to do one really cool project with a company, and then I bring some more ideas to another company, with that company being a stamp of approval that, like, hey, we worked together, this went great, and the product that we created together was awesome. So going back to the Nikon show, we created a series called A Photographer In, which was in no means associated with Nikon, though we did use Nikon cameras most of the time. And it really was just a show where I created content in between other jobs. Throughout the first couple of episodes, really just myself only out there in the world trying to make things happen. And then eventually I started bringing in other friends like Tim to help me do video. One, as if we were pitching to companies to like go out and to go to Africa on safari, I kind of needed to have a crew that if I just showed up alone with my camera, I wouldn't be as respected, or I might not get the opportunities that I would if I now, like, oh, we're a team. Tim's my videographer. He comes with me everywhere. Now, all of a sudden, we're a proper operation, and we started to unlock a few more opportunities. These opportunities, there's actually, I'll put a link in the description below to the course. It's called How to Travel the World for Nearly Free. It's a few years old now, but all of the same principles apply. It's really all about just setting up emails. There's templates in that course, as well as just reaching out to people relentlessly. Not the same people, like, don't be annoying, but reaching out to a number of different companies and really figuring out how to add value to their company. That if you're the one that is approaching them, you really have to have all of the value on their side. If they're approaching you, it's more of a 50-50 split. But if you're just sending out cold emails, you really do have to figure out how to put a lot of the value on their side in order for them to say yes. And because of that, maybe the first deal that you do with the company maybe really is barely even worth doing, but knowing that that might turn into a second and third and fourth and fifth deal, especially if they're relinquishing a lot of the creative control on your side of things, or in the case of the Nikon show, that like we got to put this on our YouTube channel, which is also amazing. So there are a lot of different variables that would go into pricing a project like this, but that's a bigger, much larger discussion for another time. So from these first few episodes of A Photographer In, we essentially created the framework that we could just kind of be like, hey, this is what we would like to do, but we would like to do more product features. We would like to do more sections like this specific section. Here's the timestamp. We also referenced other content that was existing in the world that we were like, we'd love to do something like this. This is what this team is doing right now. We would love to embody some of that in the project that we would like to do for you. So rather than the pitch just being words on the page, it was a number of different videos that ourselves and others similar to us had created, which makes it a lot more tangible for a company to say yes. If you are somebody that is a YouTube content creator, or really just anyone that wants companies to back their projects, you have to understand on some level that you are an advertiser, that you're creating a platform for them to advertise their product on. And this might feel a little dirty at the beginning, or it might feel like you sold out already. But the truth is that there's always a balance in this. And as long as you do the contracts and everything correctly, you really do make it so that you can create something that is far, far, far more valuable for the viewer than just them watching an advertisement. Think, for instance, I get a lot of my inspiration from companies like Red Bull Media House that go out and they do crazy, insane things. And yes, Red Bull is always a sponsor. There's always Red Bull on people's helmets and on their snowboards or whatever. But you'll never find someone on camera being like, hey, you should try Red Bull. You can find it down at your local grocery store. That there are other ways to do product placement and advertising for companies that just really isn't as dirty as direct speaking and like, hey, go buy this right now. And as a content creator, if you want to be working with companies, that is a line that you're going to have to balance on. Now, how do you unlock a show like this for yourself? I think it's important to get out there right now, regardless of where you're at, and just start creating the project that you want to exist. And I know that there's always going to be balance between art as well as commerce, but there is likely a way that you're able to create this content within a space that is relevant to what you're actually currently being paid for, or what you would like to be paid for. I've spoken to this a few times in destination weddings, in regards to if you're a photographer, you want to get out, you want to shoot your first destination wedding. The really hard and challenging part is to get out there and actually build the portfolio that if you're a photographer and you've only shot close to home, that it's very difficult for somebody to picture you coming to their wedding and them flying you down if it's not something that you've ever done before. So in the case of destination weddings, I've always offered up the unpopular opinion that other photographer teachers definitely won't agree with, that I'm like, find any way you possibly can to go out and shoot that destination wedding, that if that means actually paying your way the first time to go out and do that opportunity, if you know a friend of a friend that's having a destination wedding, you want to get into that market, like do whatever you can to go out and do that destination wedding, because the marketing material, if done properly, that you're going to create on that experience is going to far exceed the value that you actually spent doing this project. I think when it comes to doing travel content, it's such a highly competitive space that it's almost a must, that you have to get out there and you have to start creating the content that you want to exist. One, as a way for you to shop it around to companies, and two, and maybe more importantly, so that you're not going to be pulled in a direction that you don't want to go. That if you have the template, you have the blueprint, and you're like, this is it, this is where we begin, this is the project, a company is going to see that and they're not going to stray too far away from what you've already done, that they will be using what you're showing them as a blueprint of what that project you're going to create together will become. Now, it's not easy. You don't just email one company, you're like, hey, I'd love to work with you, Red Bull. Like, let's do a project together. It's a lot of rejection. I found this in the course that you can access in the description below if you're a member. I found that in the travel space, that if I reached out to, say, 10 hotels, usually 2 would get back to me. One of them would be some sort of weird rejection, and one of them would be okay, we're interested, like, please go into more detail about what you're going to do for us. That might come in the form of a phone call, or that might just be more detail over an email, but usually that is the opportunity. So in my case, if I'm sending out 20 emails, I'm usually unlocking 2 final opportunities. So the biggest part in the beginning is really just getting over the fact that you're not even going to be rejected. You're just going to silently be rejected. They're just never going to respond to that email. So don't get too focused on one specific company that you want to be working with, because there's a pretty good chance that if they're that high level company that you're aspiring to work with, there's a lot of other creatives that are all aspiring to work with them, and it's going to be very difficult to actually get in. And essentially you're gonna have to flip that value, that usually, like, if they're getting a lot of value and you're getting very little in the beginning, they're going to have to be getting an alarming, exceeding amount of value. And at that point, there's some sort of balance that becomes almost like, this must be a scam. There's no way that this person should be willing to do this much for this amount of money or this amount of product. So to summarize all of this, if you are interested in creating content and having a brand associated with it, know that you are an advertiser, that you're creating a platform for them to put their advertising message on to send out to your audience. And once you start to build an audience that they would be interested in being in front of, that is when all the opportunities start to unlock. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Head over to squarespace.com/Taylor Jackson if you are interested in getting a free trial and also 10% off your first order with Squarespace. Squarespace is the company that I have used for years and years for my websites. All of my websites are actually now running Squarespace. I'm happy to say. The amazing thing with Squarespace is the templates. And if you are somebody that wants to build their website, but you don't really want to be a web designer, you don't really want to have to do a lot of graphics work, that you can plug all of your content into one of their templates and within a couple of hours have a fully professional looking website to promote and sell your photography services. The other thing that I love doing with them, specifically as a photographer that works a lot, if I'm doing family sessions or I'm doing mini sessions this time of year specifically, that you can do scheduling on Squarespace as well. So you can actually just open up your scheduling and be like, hey, I'm available these dates, these times, and here's the cost, and they can check out and they pay you, and Squarespace sends you, hey, you're booked at 4 p.m. at this time, and it makes it very, very easy. So if you're interested in scheduling, which I've been using a lot this month, or you're interested in just having a photography website, head over squarespace.com/Taylor Jackson. Thanks so much for watching today. We are excited to, this feels like a weird place to put the announcement. I'm doing a snowboard film over this year. It's not a snowboard film necessarily, but that's kind of the visuals or the way it will appear. And it's going to be an interesting project because it really is just myself starting at absolute zero with a GoPro 9 and a media mod and also a Nikon camera. And I'm just going to go out in the world with kind of what I talked about today, that just build your dream project. And I'm going to go out with that mindset and see where the next 3 or 4 months are going to take me. This is kind of based in the fact that like I can't really fly anywhere. We can't really do a full season 2 of the Nikon show this year, simply because I can't logistically really leave Canada with a 2-week quarantine coming in and everything. It makes it a little bit difficult to run a business. So we're staying within Canada and we are building a new film this winter. So that will be out. It's a big project. So quite honestly, it'll probably be May, maybe end of April before it's actually out, but I will be releasing pieces of it along the way. So maybe head over Instagram.com/Taylor Jackson if you're interested in following along on that process. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace.com/Taylor Jackson. Get your free trial, 10% off today. See you next time.